Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Happy Mum, Happy Baby, the podcast. Today's guest is the most decorated female sailor in Olympic history. That is a mouthful and amazing. She's also the founder of the Big Plastic Pledge. She's a mother of one little girl who's 10 months old. It's Hannah Mills OBE.
Hi.
Do you like the fact that OBE is now added to your name? You can't have it without. You can't. No.
No. I find it. Yeah, it's bizarre. Completely bizarre. But I enjoy that you put it on there, so thank you.
I feel like if you've been given it, you should absolutely use it at all times. So if you're introducing yourself, you should always have OBE at the end of it.
I think it'd be weird if I introduced myself as Hannah Mills OBE.
I think you should.
Okay. I'll take that forward. Thanks.
Yeah. If we're ever out together in the future, I will be like, this is Hannah Mills OBE.
Perfect.
How are you?
I'm really good. Yeah, I'm really good. I had a busy few months, but loving summer at home. I'm always away in the summer, so it's nice to be home for quite a long time.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. How does it feel to be the most decorated female sailor? And also, when I say sailor, like I think of sailing as that thing of a nice little, little jaunt down the river. Nice little. My dad's got a little barge boat, and it's all very,
Lovely.
calm and lovely. That is not what you do.
It's not quite what I do, no, but that is a great element to sailing as a sport. There is that, and then there is very competitive Olympic level sailing as well. So yeah, it covers everything. But it's bizarre. When you start out as wanting to be a professional athlete and wanting to go to the Olympics and win a gold medal, at no point are you thinking, I want to become the most successful person or female at doing this. So yeah, when you add it all together and quite a long career of Olympic sailing, it's mental.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you literally get chucked around on a catamaran, essentially. Is it a catamaran?
I do now, yeah. So since Olympics, Olympic sailing, I was in a dinghy called a 470, so it's two people,
right?
Just one hull,
right.
And so that was quite different to what I do now, which is called Sail GP, racing around on a 50-foot catamaran that flies out the water with foils going almost 100 kilometres an hour, which is just unbelievably
amazing. And there's
amazing.
G-force.
A lot of G-force, yeah. When we turned the corner, I remember getting on for the first time and turning a corner was just like, hold on, you are properly fired against the side. The boats are phenomenal, amazing.
It sounds absolutely terrifying.
It can be, yeah, it definitely can be. The racing is like tiny courses, all 10 boats, jam-packed, short races, so it's really intense and you're neck and neck and neck kind of the whole way around. So yeah, it's those speeds, it's pretty full on, but it's unbelievably cool.
And did you grow up near the water?
I grew up in Cardiff, so there is water there, but I actually learned to sail on a little reservoir near home, which had this amazing little wooden shack and hangar where all the boats were, and it was just great. Like I begged mum and dad to take me down as much as I could, and there was just an awesome community there. You could jump in boats and have a laugh, and a lot of my friends now are still people that I met there growing up sailing.
Was that a massive part of your childhood then?
Yeah, it was. It was sort of the start, I guess, of everything that's followed, and yeah, it was cool.
So did you ever think that could be something that you actually turn into a career?
Not straight off the bat. I mean, I was probably a bit weird in that I was always, since the age of 8, I wanted to go to the Olympics. I remember watching the Atlanta Games on the telly and just going, oh my God, I want to do that. I was always really competitive, loved sport, loved all sports. Didn't really care what I went in. I just wanted to go to the Olympics, and then found sailing. And once I realised you could race sailboats, I was like, oh my God, this is what I want to do. Then I realised it was in the Olympics, and that was it. That was me set, I think, at about 11.
Really?
Yeah, I know. It's crazy, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, how did that impact your childhood, though? Because I know, like, the swimmers say that they have to go and they're there all the time and they're, diving and whatever else. But what is that like as a child who wants to, sail?
Yeah, I mean, it's not quite the same as something like swimming, where, you can go every single day, because obviously with school, we couldn't sail every day, but it was every weekend,
right.
As much as I could possibly get out on the water, or in the summer after school, the late evenings. And my parents were just unbelievable. We had a really good network of like 4 families who lived in the same area, sort of grew up at this same club, and they'd share the role, they'd each take a weekend on and take the kids and wherever we could go to compete, or, find the best people to sail against and just get as good as we could.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
What such a different childhood.
It was amazing. I look back and I'm just so grateful to my mum and dad. Like at the time, you don't necessarily think about it. It's just what you do. And I look back now and I'm just, it was unbelievably amazing of them to allow me to do that.
Did you ever look to your future and think about having a family?
Yeah, I think I did in a sort of abstracty way, I guess, because I was so determined as an Olympic athlete that's what I wanted to do. But I'd always imagined having a family, if that makes sense, but never quite sure how it would fit and how it would happen. So it's always been in the back of my mind, but never sort of clear how.
Because it must be hard, because obviously with the Olympics you have clear times where you have to, be really training, and you've always got to focus. So factoring in motherhood within that, what the effect that it's going to have on your body, on your mind, on your emotions, on your focus, there's so many unpredictable things that can happen within that. And I imagine as an athlete, you have to be, everything is quite controlled to a matter of to a certain extent. You have to know your body, so to give yourself over to that and to time it in a way must be such a hard thing to even factor in.
It is 100%. You kind of nailed it all there. It's the Olympics is just all-consuming. It's everything, and with sailing, you're away quite a lot training and competing because you want to train with the best, and so you go where they are, and everyone worldwide kind of congregates to different places to train together, which is probably quite unique as a sport. So there's a lot of travel involved. So for me, Olympic sailing, it never felt like the right time to have a baby, and I don't think it ever feels like the right time. No. It didn't, even when we decided to try. It was like, it doesn't feel like the right time. But now, let's do it and see. We'll figure it out, basically. But I did wait till I'd finished my Olympic career. So I waited till after the Tokyo Games, and then the rest is history in a way.
That must just felt like such a massive leap.
Yeah, it was huge. It was because I'd kind of, everyone talks about the Olympic blues, and after the Olympics as an athlete, you really lose your identity because it's what next, and you're kind of figuring out life, I guess, after Olympic, whatever your career in the Olympics is, you're figuring out life. And I was lucky enough to get offered this role in SailGP with the British team straight after the Games, and for me it was like the perfect stepping stone because it was sort of professional sailing. It was all about gender equality and pushing women forward in sport, a lot about the environment and purpose and impact, which is all things I'm hugely passionate about and had done a lot in my Olympic career around. And so I was like, I want to do that. But equally, I was like, I also want to try and have a family. Yeah. And so how does that fit? And so I jumped into SailGP and the British team, and Ben Ainslie, who's the CEO and driver of our boat, who's the most successful male Olympic sailor of all time, which is kind of nuts as well. Kind of welcomed me with open arms. And early on, actually, I'd done one event with the team, and I kind of went up to his house and said, look, I really want to be a part of this, and I think I've got a lot to offer, but I also really want to try and have a baby. And so
that must be a really big conversation to have, like for anyone with any employee to kind of go and say, this is, I'm thinking about this. We don't have to say, most people don't have to say until they're pregnant and they're 12 weeks in. But actually, as an athlete, is there do you feel like you owe that to the team to have that as part of the open conversation as well, and not to shy away from things that are life?
Yeah, I 100% did. And I mean, I didn't tell. I told him about I was pregnant. I'd been pregnant for 3 weeks, or 4 weeks, however, like super early. As soon as you could find out, I'd found out.
Also, doing what you do, there's a risk element.
Exactly.
So you have to.
I couldn't get on the boat. Yeah. I just couldn't get on the boat, and so I told him really early, and it was kind of just the most amazing response.
Really?
Yeah, it was unbelievable. It was right. Well, what do you need? How can we help? We'll be here when you're ready to come back and support you in doing that. And I just remember feeling like this such relief. And excitement, I guess, about the fact that I could go and do this, have a baby, and then come back, and the team would be there to support me in doing that. And SailGP, actually, the league, were incredibly supportive as well to make it all happen. So it just felt like this breakthrough in elite sport, and this amazing sort of opportunity to showcase how it can be done. And showcase that route back for women. And I just think in any sector, like if you value your female employee and they want to go and do this amazing thing and start a family, then you should make every option possible for them to stay involved and come back. And this was kind of an amazing example of that.
Yeah. How did it feel when you first found out you were pregnant?
So when I first found out I was pregnant, I was relieved because you just don't know if it's going to be possible. So I felt huge relief. I felt unbelievable excitement and complete and utter terror because I'd always been just I couldn't see how the baby was going to get out. If I'm being honest.
Oh my God.
I know. I was like, wait, what? So yeah.
I love that that's the first thing that your mind went to.
I know.
It's got to come out to me now.
Exactly. It was just like, oh my God. But yeah, just all of those feelings. Yeah. Elation.
Had you had symptoms leading up to you taking the test, or was it just because you
Well,
were
in hindsight,
crying?
I had. Yeah. I was really grumpy and not the nicest person to be around. And then I took the pregnancy test and it was like, oh, that makes sense.
I do like you.
Yeah. Okay, cool. That's not who I've just become. Great. There's a reason. Yeah.
And how was the pregnancy after you found out?
Well, yeah, I'll be honest. So that I had a miscarriage to start with. So I first got pregnant and then we lost the baby like 9-10 weeks in.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yeah. So that first pregnancy, I was excited.
Yeah.
I just couldn't believe it happened. And you don't necessarily think about anything going wrong the first time round. Because there's not, it's spoken about more now, but it's not spoken about that much, how much it happens. So it wasn't necessarily on my radar. And then obviously it did happen and it was awful. I spent, a month at least just so down, and you don't know who to turn to because I didn't know anyone sort of who'd had it happen to them. And so it was really, really hard, actually. And then I felt really scared about trying again because I was like, I just don't know if I can go through all those feelings again. And we were very lucky that when we did decide to go again, we got pregnant quite quickly, and then it was all good pretty much.
How did it feel though, finding you were pregnant the second time? Like you were saying, the first time, it's full of that joy, and there's an innocence to it. There's a naivety. And actually, second time round, you're knowing that time going into it, and for me at least, I felt like there was a fear attached to that.
Massive fear. Yeah, it completely changed my pregnancy. I think I didn't really enjoy it. I spent the whole time really nervous and just you get to the point where you start feeling the baby move, and then you've got all the scans to go to, and every time your just heart's in your mouth, just hoping that it's all fine. And then once the baby starts moving, and you have times where you're like, I don't think they've moved as much, and so you just straight to panic. But I was very lucky with the support from the NHS and the maternity ward down in Poole, and they were incredible in supporting all of those kind of moments of panic. And it wasn't a very nice journey, to be honest. And then at the end, all you care about is that everyone comes out of it all okay and healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. I imagine though, having the miscarriage as well, it must have felt like especially in terms of where you were with your career as well, kind of you're starting on one journey that you've prepped for, you know what this is going to look like, and then all of a sudden just that pause on what that is, what you do with that time in between must have been really tricky as well. Yeah,
it actually was. It was really hard because, as an athlete or, competitive person, you kind of have things mapped out and you can't map out life necessarily, but you can have an idea of what you're trying to get to and what you're trying to achieve. And so I'd sort of thought, I'm pregnant, that's amazing, great, we'll have the baby here, and then I can think about coming back sailing here and plan all of that. And then that kind of all gets blasted away, and it's just now a what if, who knows what's going to happen. And so that uncertainty is, for anyone, is very hard,
So with the next pregnancy, do you feel like you almost didn't let yourself go there because of the pain before?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I just day by day took it as, you know, every day was a bonus. And
I felt like toilet trip by toilet trip. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally, because you're always checking and always worried about what you might see or find or feel.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a long old 40 weeks or whatever it turns
And I
out
imagine
to
as well,
be.
being an athlete, you know your body. Like any twinges or anything must really be amplified.
You
as
do.
well.
You do know your body, but I think, you know, the other thing with pregnancy is you lose complete control over your body.
That
And
must be so. Is that a really overwhelming feeling?
It's quite overwhelming. Yeah, like you're suddenly a lot more limited in what you can do. And I felt like I was just so big at the end, and I literally could barely walk. Like my hips were just so sore, and so, but it was a mindset for me. It was very much, and maybe that's where the sort of athlete mindset comes in. It was like, well, this is what I need to do to prepare and have the best possible chance of the baby. So I'll do that. And the fact that I couldn't do all the things I normally could was fine. It was kind of just, okay, what can I do, and what's the right thing to do? And so I just kind of took that mindset to the pregnancy. To just,
You've got extreme fatigue as well at the start.
I did, yeah. I forgot about that. I blanked that.
It's all right. You've said it somewhere, so I know about it.
It was just the first 3 months. Yeah,
really.
I was on the sofa. Just I remember we were in a top floor flat at the time. And we were really close to the beach, which was amazing, but it was sort of all downhill. And I remember I got down to the beach to have a little picnic, and I couldn't get back to the flat. I was just exhausted. I remember getting back to the flat, and I just passed out for about 2 hours. I've never felt so fatigued in all my life. Yeah, and then suddenly you're not fatigued, and you're like, oh my God, life has possibility again. But God, it made me have so much empathy towards people that are dealing with that, you know, regularly, because people do. And yeah, it's really tough.
And on the team, they found you a new role during your pregnancy.
Yeah, they did. So I still went to a lot of the events until about sort of 6.5, 7 months.
Right.
With the team, and I was sort of on the water helping coaching, supporting our coach, but then also really getting involved with a lot of the sustainability projects that we had going. We have a lot of activation with schools and engaging kids. So yeah, I kind of took on all of that stuff, which was amazing.
That's
and
incredible.
I loved. Yeah, it was great.
I think especially when, you know, as a sport, having women and men together, and you're the first. Are you the first?
Yeah, the first at SLGP to have a baby. We've got, I think, 2 more people.
Really?
One's just had and one's about to have.
So you're kind of paving the way as well. And I guess there's a bit of experimentation within that as well, to make sure that everyone still has a role, still feels valid, still is able to give the wisdom and the skill set that they have to make the team stronger.
Exactly. And I definitely felt with the journey back to competing, I was like, right, I'm doing this and figuring this out for everyone who comes next. Because there was a lot to figure out with all the logistics and breastfeeding and all of that stuff, whilst obviously competing.
You certainly made a massive impact, because Fee, who got in touch about you to be on, I actually wrote it down because she said you're the most determined and inspirational athlete she's ever worked with.
That's pretty mental.
but the effect that you've had on the whole team, you know, I think we can be sucked into thinking that a team is literally those people that are on the boat, but actually there's such a huge wider team around you, and you know, to know that you're having that impact on everyone there is massive. It's huge. Yeah,
no, it is, and you know, the wider SLGP team are incredible, and definitely all the women in that team and a lot of the men have been unbelievably supportive. And it just shows, like, if you've got the right people in an organisation, you can really make things different and make things positive for everyone.
Yeah. How did you feel heading towards the birth?
Oh my God, terrified. Yeah, as we touched on earlier, terrified.
Oh my God, from data. Is birth something you'd ever thought about before? Because obviously, again, being an athlete, you trust your body, you know what you do, but this is a whole new thing to prepare for.
Yeah, I mean, I was just couldn't imagine how it was going to happen and how she was going to come out, and I was so scared
really
of it going wrong. Yeah, I just had this fear that I couldn't I couldn't quite put to bed, I guess. And so, you know, at I think around 30 weeks, we went in for a scan because I'd had a couple of times where I was like, I don't think she's moving. So I got checked and they were like, okay, come in for a scan just to make sure. So I did go in and they were like, oh, her tummy's really big. And I was like, what does that mean? But they didn't really tell you.
Yeah, it's an observation.
It's just an observation.
Well,
You're
thanks.
like, all right, cool. So then you Google and you see all the worst possible scenarios and things. And anyway, they said, look, let's monitor every 2 weeks. So let's have a scan every 2 weeks. And I got tested for gestational diabetes and that all came back clear. And just every week it was like, yeah, she's got a big tummy, or she's quite big. She was in like the 97th percentile or something. And so I was like, oh my God, seriously, how is she coming out? And I had quite a lot of friends who'd been through different births. A lot had been induced and not had a good time, and a lot had ended in emergency C-sections.
Yeah.
And anyway, towards sort of 35 weeks, I just remember thinking, I think I want to have a C-section. I feel so uncomfortable about this whole thing, and I just want her to come out as safely as possible. And to me, I guess taking some of that control, as maybe my athlete kind of career, it sort of pushed me towards. It just felt like I want to explore this and really understand what it is and what happened. And so I did end up booking in to have a planned C-section. The whole way through, you know, I was always of the mindset I just want her to be okay. I don't mind how she comes out. I just and like you said, towards the end, I just felt like this is the path I think I want to take. So that's how she came out.
How many weeks was she?
She was 39 and 3 days.
That's quite late. Were you worried?
Well, to be honest, I basically, because I knew she was big or bigger, I wanted a planned C-section, but at the same time, if she wanted to come out naturally before the due date, then that was also fine. So we sort of pushed it as late as we felt comfortable with. Yeah. And then if she hadn't come, we'd just have the C-section and that was that. But it was actually a bit nuts because the week before they sort of book you in and say, right, you're going to come in on the Wednesday, you're going to come in for your pre-op here and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, cool, perfect. She's coming out on the 13th or 12th, or whatever it was of October, 12th of October. And then a couple of days later, it was like, oh, could you come in on the 11th, actually? We wanted to. I was like, okay, fine, she's coming out on the 11th, great. And then the morning of the 10th, when I was supposed to go in for my pre-op the day before, I got this phone call at 7:30 a.m. and I was like, oh, it's from the hospital, oh God. And they were like, oh, we've actually got space today. Do you want to come in? And I was like, today? I was going to have a haircut. Nick, my fiance, was going to go and play golf for the last time in God knows how long. And I was like, give me 5. So I hung up and I was like, today, Nick? And he was like, yeah, let's do it. So when we went, oh my God, it was just this whirlwind. Yeah. And she came out on the 10th.
Ah, that's incredible.
Yeah, it was nuts. Yeah, unexpectedly early.
Well, I like that. Unexpectedly early, thanks to a phone call.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that.
Crazy.
How did it feel going into surgery, into the operating theatre?
Oh, terrifying. Yeah, because it's a major operation, of course, and the epidural. I'm not great with needles. Luckily, you don't see it, but I was a bit unfortunate, I think, that I had a trainee anaesthetist, with obviously the consultant next to her, but I had her trying to put it in my back and she couldn't get it in, so I kept getting jabbed, and at the end I was like, I can't do this anymore.
Really?
I can't. And so the consultant lady stepped in and did it straight away, so that was all fine. But
also, I think probably the fact that you can't see it in that circumstance as well, the fact that you can't see it must also almost make it worse if they keep trying.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, I'm not good at the best of times with stuff like that. But again, the old athlete mindset came in, and I was like, it will just all be over at some certain point. And it's always when I'm like doing a really hard training session or something, you're like, this will be over in 30 minutes or half an hour or an hour or whatever it is, and you just set your mind on that and just go. And it was kind of the same thing. It was like, I know this will be over, and whatever will have happened, and there'll be an end point, and so you just get to that end point. And so I definitely had that kind of mindset of it will be done.
So once that bit was done,
really ceremonial here, aren't I?
No, it's
God.
good. But also it's so important that people hear different, like, so even
Everyone's
if they've been
different.
through it, everyone's different, and it might be that someone's listening and they had a similar experience, and they've not heard anyone else in the same boat. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's good. So when that part was done, how was the actual C-section?
Weird, yeah, because you have I had a curtain up because I didn't really want to see, but you can feel it. You can feel like it doesn't hurt, obviously,
Yeah.
but you can feel them sort of rummaging and then pulling her out, and I actually felt her come out, and so it was bizarre, but quite amazing, really. And then she sort of made a coughing sound, and so I was like, oh, okay, she's okay, and that's great. But then actually quite quickly it was like, okay, she's sort of fine, but she's not getting enough. Her lungs weren't properly opening and closing,
Right.
and so they quickly kind of took her away. And then also at the same time, I'd lost quite a lot more blood than they'd thought,
Yeah.
and so then there was a bit of a panic as to how much blood I'd lost, and so it was all going on. And Nick was sat right there, and he was like, how do I go with the baby, or do I stay
Yeah.
here? And so he initially went over to Sienna, and then kind of came back to me and sat with me for a while, and then he went off to see Sienna. And so yeah, it was all a bit mental, but I was pretty out of it, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, I was pretty out. I'd lost like 1.5 litres of blood or something, so it was I don't know, a reasonable amount. But
Yeah.
what was unbelievable was they put 300 ml of my own blood back in.
No.
Yeah, I couldn't. I was just like, what? So they were like, yeah, so we obviously sucked the blood out, put it through this like filtration cleaning thing, and they got 300 ml that they could then put back into me. It was amazing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, unbelievably cool.
That's incredible.
It was incredible. Yeah, it was incredible. Yeah. So then, yeah, we spent 3 days in the hospital with Sienna sort of being observed, and she got pumped with antibiotics, and just she had amazing care in the NICU.
I'm guessing
ICU.
as well, because of that start, that it meant that you didn't get to hold her.
So they really quickly kind of brought her over to me and put her on my chest,
Right.
and then took her. So I did have that kind of immediate moment, but to be honest, it was all just such a blur,
Yeah.
and it was all just do what you need to do, you know, and that's fine. And as I said, I was really out of it.
Yeah.
And then I went up to my own room and kind of had all the stuff I got pumped with to just make sure I was okay. And then went to see her kind of a few hours later, which was amazing.
And how long
scary.
until she was with you?
So 3 days, yeah. So I think 48 hours she was on sort of an antibiotic drip just to kind of make sure she was all good. And then slowly they reduced the sort of oxygen they sort of were putting into her for her to kind of breathe properly on her own. So yeah, and then I think she spent maybe 12 more hours there just after she came off of all of that to make sure all was good. And then all was good.
That must have all been so terrifying, though, to go through.
It was terrifying. Yeah, it was. And just surreal, to be honest, and just feels like such a blur. But like I said, the care was amazing.
Really?
Absolutely amazing. Yeah, the midwives and staff were just phenomenal. Very lucky.
How long until you could actually leave the hospital?
So she was born on the Monday lunchtime, and then we left on the Thursday lunchtime.
How did that feel?
Amazing. Oh my God. Just mental though. You have this tiny, tiny baby in a car seat and you're walking out of the hospital, that feeling that every parent's gone through of just, oh my God, we're on our own.
But also you've gone through something massive.
Yeah.
So like the world looks different outside.
Completely different. Yeah. You sort of go in as one person and come out as a completely new person. Your life's changed forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
And what was it like getting home?
It was just the best feeling, to be honest, getting home and knowing that now it was completely our responsibility, and that, you know, we're doing everything we can possible from now on for her to have the best possible life.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And how was that bubble?
Broken quite quickly. Yeah. Well, that afternoon, so my mum and dad had come down from Cardiff sort of on the Tuesday maybe.
Right.
And so I really wanted to just get out of the flat and go for a walk.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't walk very far, but we all went out and walked along the beachfront for, I think we must have walked for about 5 minutes. And I was like, okay, I think I'm done here. But it was just amazing to get out and have Sienna in the pram. And yeah, my mum and dad were there, and it was just really, really nice. And yeah, I guess from then on, it was just like everything we do now, she comes with. She's part of everything.
Yeah.
Just that realization. It was like, wow, we've got another person to have involved in everything we do.
Yeah. And
So
how
cool.
has that been? Because you literally do travel quite a fair bit, and now you've got a little baby with you.
Yeah. Well, I was always adamant that, carrying on with SailGP and the British team and doing that, firstly, I wanted to breastfeed if I could. And
Yeah.
I was lucky that it all worked reasonably well. I had some challenges here and there, but it worked. And my goal was always 3 months and then see. And at 3 months, I went to my first SailGP event to sort of suss it out, get on the boat, see if I felt okay. And
How did that feel?
amazing.
Did it?
Yeah, it did. It did. Like I was, a different version of myself for sure, because, I'd still got a whole heap of sort of baby body, and I looked very different when I look back on camera, and I'm like, oh God, I look so different. And my mind wasn't sharp, and so all of those things. But just to go out there, be part of the team, integrate Sienna and Nick with the new way of doing things and how it was going to be, and figure out the breastfeeding. And yeah, it was just such an amazing journey. Actually, that first trip away, it was in Singapore, so it was quite far. A whole learning experience, and I did get on the boat and I did race that weekend. It was quite light wind.
Did you have to do anything in preparation before getting on the boat?
I did.
Within that 3 months, that's a very small window.
It is, and especially after a C-section, the first 6 weeks you can't do a
anything
lot
in it,
at all, other than a bit of walking and a bit of
lift up the baby.
Yeah,
eventually.
exactly, pretty much. Yeah, so then after that sort of 6 week mark, so actually earlier on, there's not a lot out there for people wanting to get back to competitive sport.
Yeah.
And so I did a lot of digging into resources from my Olympic career with the British sailing team and the English Institute of Sport and with the SailGP doctor, and kind of brought together this little group of people to really look at how I could come back in the best way possible and the safest way possible. And so, I went and found a maternity physio, and so I don't know what her title was, but something like that. So she could check my abs to see how they would, because they obviously split apart when you're pregnant and have a baby, and then how much they needed to come back together, and just to understand, I guess, where my body was at.
Yeah.
So we could tailor the training around that. So we looked at all that. And then it was very much, okay, what are the movements I need to be able to do? And what's the process to check that I can do that before I actually go and get on the boat? Because particularly when you're breastfeeding, your ligaments and everything are a lot more flexible and looser. And so, the possibility of like twisting a knee or rolling an ankle is much higher. And in SailGP, that is quite a high possibility if you're not ready for it. So it was all things around strapping of the knees and ankles just to give that extra support. And the conditions were really imperative. If it was windy, there was no way I was going on the boat,
really?
Because it's the G-force, like you said, and it's just much riskier. But Singapore, we knew, was probably going to be quite a light wind venue, so it's just all a bit slower, and you can kind of take your time a little bit. So it's kind of the perfect.
Not your brain though. Your brain starts to be sharp.
The brain, the brain was another one, another topic. But yeah, just the planning that went into coming back in the best way possible.
Even simple things like I read that you'd said about with breastfeeding, making sure that you feed her at least express before getting on that boat because of that feeling. It just made my boobs instantly burned at the thought of it.
They do, don't they? Mine did too. That sort of knowing of like handing over the milk to Nick as I was about to go out, it was like, oh my God. And then that weird feeling, when they fill back up and you're like, oh my God, what's just happened? Yeah, that happened a few times on the water, and I was like, oh
at least, if there's a leak situation, you'll be like, I just got splashed with water.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But it's simple things like we have these team tents where the boat's in, and we have team containers and sort of a communal area that we'd all sit around to look at the telly and debrief and chat about the racing. And I'd be sat there just before we were going sailing when the coach was giving the team chat. I'd be sat there expressing.
Yeah.
And all the guys were just, they were amazing, you know. Not once did I feel awkward or uncomfortable or out of place. And I'd go to the back of the container and have a chair, and I'd feed Sienna when I got back in. And that was right by the fridge where everyone would go and get a drink. And so they'd all come along. I'd be facing the other way, but they'd all come along and still chat to me. And just little things like that made it feel so normal and accepted. And just, it was just amazing. It was so good.
I love that. And Nick's obviously an athlete as well.
Yeah.
How has that been, having two very driven people in the house?
Yeah, well, so Nick retired from Olympic windsurfing after Rio 2016, and then he went coaching. So he coached for that whole Tokyo Olympic cycle. And then he took up a job, kind of his dream job actually, with the British sailing team, coaching their windsurfers. So he'd been with Japan for the Tokyo cycle coaching, and then got the job with the British in October that after the games. And it was his dream job, and he absolutely loved it. And but I remember it was about a year later when we'd had Sienna, and we were planning our calendar for the next year. And we put everything down, and it was just, I remember feeling sick. I was like, this is horrific. We're never going to see each other. I'm going to have a nanny that brings Sienna. That's not what we want. You know, that's not the life we want at this point in time. Like, we want to spend as much time with each other and Sienna as we can. Nick's got two older boys who are 11 and 14, and you know, he wanted to see them more and for them to be as involved as possible with Sienna. And so all of these things, we were like, this is not the life that we want.
Yeah.
And so Nick took the kind of big decision to step back from his coaching role so that he could come and make everything possible for me, which was just like, it was insane, amazing.
Yeah, absolutely incredible.
It was cool. It was like, right, well, this really is the modern way.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's been unbelievable. And he loves it. Oh my
Really?
God. Oh my God. Yeah. Like he had, you know, like anything with any transition, however excited you are about it, he definitely had like a, 2 or 3 month wobble of just, who am I? What am I doing now? Like any mum probably that goes through that is trying to figure out their identity. He had exactly the same. And so I was just tried to support him through that and figure out what we could do to kind of bring his old self back into what he's doing and all of these things. So we kind of went through that whole process and journey, and now he's just absolutely loving it.
Identity must be a massive thing, because you must get that as an athlete, and you definitely get that as a parent, you know, in those early stages of kind of going, I don't know who I am right now. And, you know, I think the person that you were before feels like such a distant memory. So it's great that you've got each other there to kind of go through that.
Yeah, completely, because we both had phases of that for sure. Just like, who am I now? What am I doing? How is it going to work? All the fearful questions that you don't have answers to always, but you muddle through and you talk about it and you make it work as best you possibly can.
How has becoming a mum affected you as an athlete?
Oh, I think it's made training a bit harder. It's the first thing that seems to get
It's the heavy
dropped.
boots, that's what it is.
Yeah, exactly. It's made training a bit harder. My God, I've been so organised. I've never been so organised in my life. Yeah, because I'm so adamant about protecting my time with Sienna and making sure that she is there as much as possible and I can be a mum as much, because I love it. I never thought I'd love it this much, and I feel incredibly, I've said lucky about a million times today, but I do, I really do, because you don't know how you're going to feel, and I was always a bit fearful of how it was going to be afterwards and how I would feel. And since I remember like day 2 of her being at home, I was just in tears about the thought of her growing up. And just like, Nick was like, are you all right? I'm fine. And it's the same now. I just every moment I want to be with her. And so, to be able to be with her as much as I am is a real privilege, and I love it.
And because you have to sort the logistics out in the way that you do, and your, time training and stuff is limited, does that mean, like you said before about, that when you're training, you've got half an hour more of this and then you're done? Mm-hmm. Does that mean that the time that you have dedicated to it, you are more on it than ever?
Yeah, efficiency it's just like a whole new level. I'm sure all mums feel the same. You're like, oh my God, I never knew I could be so productive and efficient as I am. Now I've got a baby or a child. And so, yeah, I just, everything is like, right, boom, boom, boom. It's like today coming up to London, it's like, right, well, how many things can I get in to make the day as productive as possible so then I can get home and then, have a bit more time the rest of the week with Sienna doing other things that I can do from home.
Yeah.
It's just, thinking ahead, planning, being organised, which is quite new for me. I'm not the most sort of organised person.
Are you not?
Not really. I'm quite spontaneous and kind of, I'm very much like I will sort things out as they come and deal with them. And with the Olympics, you obviously plan a lot, but the rest of my life outside that has never been like that.
I think it's funny because one of the podcasts that's gone out today, actually, with Leanna Bird, we talk a lot about the fact that when you're planning a family, you think about this little baby that's going to be in your life. The things that you don't think about is the domesticated side of motherhood and the logistical side, which there's so much planning and the other stuff that comes along with being a mum.
Yeah. Like, breastfeeding was just ridiculous. I remember just crying and crying and crying, like maybe 6 weeks in, because I just felt like all I was doing was feeding Sienna, and I was like, how will I ever do anything again? Because I can't. There's no time, and just the demand was just unbelievable.
Yeah.
But then you get into your routine and you get the rhythm and the process, and actually she starts to feed more, and so the time between is more, and suddenly you can see again, and you're like, oh my God, actually there is life, and life will get better. Not that it's not good, that's not what I'm saying, but life will become slightly more normal.
It keeps moving.
It keeps moving, exactly. And then I got to 3 months, which was my original target for feeding, and I was like, gosh, I've just got into this. Like, I've just figured it out.
I was the same, yeah.
So then I was like, right, I'll get to 6 months and see how we feel then. And so, it just evolves. It always evolves, and there's always a new challenge, but there's always something that makes you smile.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, how important has it been to you to see other athletes, stepping away, becoming mums, and then coming back? I guess Jessica Ennis-Hill is a prime example. Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredibly inspirational, actually. I think for anyone in a career where they're, really trying to strive forward and make a name for themselves, and to see elite level athletes at that level having a baby and coming back, I think is just mega, and the challenges and it's hard, but it's incredible, and it's incredible. And for me, obviously seeing Jessica way before I probably thought I was going to have a baby, but then whilst I was pregnant, there was a few other athletes, Eleanor Barker, a cyclist who had a baby 6 months before me, and a few other athletes. It was just talking to some of them and hearing about their experiences, and there's been a really cool little network actually of females in the UK anyway, of athlete females chatting about it and helping each other figure it out, which has been very cool.
If you could write a letter on motherhood, who would it be to, and what would you say?
I think I'd write it to myself and probably just to say, embrace, I guess don't be scared. Don't be scared of the challenges and, how it might affect your life in all the different ways, and just try and enjoy the journey, because it is a journey, and it's a huge journey, and, it's incredibly challenging in many ways and incredibly amazing. And, I look back on my athletic sailing career, and I look back at having Sienna, and there's no comparison for me. It's like, that's the best thing I've ever done. But I'd never have thought that at 10, 11 to like 20, 25. I'd never think that. But what she's given to me is just, everything.
And finally, we finish with you completing 3 sentences. The first one is, being a mum means?
Less sleep. No, it means everything. It really does. Yeah, I feel just so lucky.
Since having a child, I've
never been so organised.
I'm liking this theme with you, because you are someone who I would imagine is really organised, but it turns out you're not at all.
No, never been so organised.
And I'm happy when?
oh, Sienna falls asleep on me.
Oh.
And that was the best bit of advice I got given. That was actually by Eleanor Barker, was that particularly that first 4 months when they're just tiny little dots and they eat and they sleep, was not to sort of feel like you have to put her down when she sleeps and, you know, do all of these routines and get her into a routine. Like, she'll find her routine, but just enjoy the cuddles and the sleep. And when she sleeps on you, let her sleep on you and enjoy it. And I remember her saying that before I'd had Sienna, and I was like, oh, yeah, sure. And then when I had her, and you do feel pressure to kind of get her into this routine and get the sleep all sorted and X, Y, and Z.
I know people always say making a rod for your own back.
Yeah, totally. And I remember that advice, and I did just embrace it, and it was the best advice. So yeah, anyone listening, I would completely say that is that first 4 months in particular, just enjoy all those sleeps and cuddles.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. They'll find their way.
I can remember a friend of mine saying to me when their little one was maybe coming up to a year, and she said, you know, because she's about to stop sleeping on me, and you know, and I was like, but she sleeps on you. And I think I'd had my third, and I'd never done it because I was so much like, they've got to go in their motorbike, got to have. And so my third, I was suddenly a bit like, I'm gonna just let him sleep on me, and just that feeling of. And also, I do feel like as a mother, it stops you from doing all the stuff and just being in that moment and just sitting in it.
Embracing and enjoying and like reveling in that just amazing moment.
Yeah, and I'm gutted that it took to the third for me to come to that realisation. Because those moments are what you do it for, really.
Totally.
Thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. It's been amazing.
It's been absolutely fascinating. I love when the athletes and the Olympians come on, because that you just have such a different mindset and view. Ultimately, it's all the same, but in terms of how you view your body, how the control, the dedication, the focus, and I feel like it's everything but amplified. You know what I mean? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
You know, you in terms of like your bodies and your minds. I just think it's extremely exciting to talk to you.
Thank you.